Hello, everybody. Welcome to Money Matters with your host, Hung Lu. Our Monday, May the 5th, and we're going to get started. I'm a little bit late because I had some IT issues. Let's see. So today we're going to get into a bit of a short calculation here. I think it's going to be pretty short. So this is going to be um, an incident where I'm showing you how to increase something. And in this particular case, it's going to be about a 200K increase. But this is something that you can apply to anything that's forced appreciation in real estate or businesses or some sort of gain that you can recognize fairly quickly. And so in my calculation today, it's only about a 200 gain, but depending on, like, say, my appraiser, he came back and said it was about a $500,000 gain. So I'm going to be a little bit more conservative with my numbers, and I'll walk you through how that works. Now, before we get into it, this is, something that may not be right for you. So in my case, this is a calculation for deciding on whether or not to go with separate meters at one of my infill build outs. So it might not be the right thing for you. So before you go and implement this, please just double check and make sure that it's right for you. Okay, so before we jump into the stuff, let me just share two things that are happening. And so if you're going to be in the Edmonton area, the first thing is to come and check out this networking event. So myself and then three of my lovely co-authors from the book Rising Above the Rest will be there to network and answer any questions that you might have about the content in the book. But really, it is a supercharged networking event. So if you're interested in attending that and you're local to Edmonton, this is probably going to be a very exciting night. And then following this on the Wednesday evening, stick around and you can hear me talk about my eightplex, which is 4+4 suites, my infill build, and learning about some of the mistakes and the errors and all of the gains that we've seen from this eightplex build, which we're not even finished yet. Okay, and so there's actually quite a lot of stuff that Don, who's my on the boots partner, and I are learning from this. So if you are in Edmonton, check out the AREA meeting coming up. So that's next week. It's really quickly coming up. All right, so those are the two events. So hopefully you'll be there and support us and then also learn and, move your real estate ahead. So now with that being said, okay, we talked about the disclaimer, which is good. So let me share the Excel sheet because I am, really hoping that all of these weekly sessions that I'm doing online is helping you realize, to take out a lot of the fears out of the numbers and allowing you to really make good educated decisions about where to put your money, what to do with it in real estate, perhaps. Okay, so here is the situation here. So my builder is coming back and saying, hey, Hong, if you want separate meters, okay, it's going to be an additional charge of 52,000. And then there's, of course, GST on top. So that GST is 5%. So in this case, about 54,600. So the math is pretty simple on this one. Okay, you just take your 50,000, the 52,000 times your 5%. That gives me my 2,600 for the taxes. And then I take my 52,000 plus my 2,600. That gives me my 54,600. Okay. So in this case, I'm estimating roughly my monthly hydro bill per unit and utilities and so forth. Now, in this case, I'm only just looking at the hydro because that's my main concern here. But now that as I'm talking about it, I'm realizing that my contractor is actually coming back and saying it would be separate meters per unit so that each unit would be able to do their hydro, gas, and water separately, which is a huge thing. So so I'm putting in 100 here, but it actually should be a little bit higher than. Okay, so I've got 8 units, so that's what that is. So my annual savings or my annual utility bills in this case would be 9,600, which is just my $100 per month times 12 months for the year times 8 units. So if this $100 is, let's say, 150, that automatically goes up from like 9,600 to 14,400. So you can see the math is just there. So what this does, so I'm going to go back to 100 here. Okay. So now in Edmonton, the cap rate is around 5%. Now, I know some people in Edmonton are arguing, no, Hung, it's not 5%, it's less than that. Okay, whatever cap rate you want to use, okay, that's what you would put in this cell here. Okay, and so I'm just gonna go in and make it a little bit easier. I'm gonna put it in green so that you know that it's a cell that you can adjust. And yeah, so then there's no issues there. Okay, so at a 5% cap rate, what that means is the I've instantly increased my value to like by 192,000. Okay, so I'm rounding up and saying, to 200,000 potentially in value. So now how did I get this number? Well, I've basically taken my C9, which is my annual utility cost in this case, the 9,600, and I've divided it by my cap rate. So if you're trying to figure out this number here, let me bring up this picture of my, which I'm sorry I didn't have earlier. What I'm going to bring up is a picture of how I remember this, and this is what I refer to as my Uncle Vic. Okay, so let me see if I can find it very quickly here. VIC. Let's see. Um, oh no, I don't have it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so let me bring that up and I will share that. And this is one of the ways that I remember how to calculate either cap rate or value or income. Okay, so you'll see on the screen here this triangle picture, and so you cover the item that you're trying to solve for. So in this case, we have the income. The income here is the 9,600. And we have the cap rate. So the cap rate is the 5%. So what we're trying to do is find the V, which is the increase in the value. So you can use this VIC for different things, right? But the premises is the same. So if you have a new, if you're going to be increasing the rents by say $200, then you can calculate that and that would be your I number. And then your C is your cap rate. And so you would be calculating your increase in the value that you have. So for example, I'm working on a Courtney on the Courtney on the island in the town or city of Courtney. We basically are building five bachelor suites, and just from that, we're going to be increasing all of our rental incomes by, let's say, $13 $1,300 to $1,400 a month. And we used our cap rate, and we figured out that just by doing those five bachelor units, we're increasing the value of the property by close to $2 million, like so $1.8 million, which is massive. Okay. So if you and so the other way to use this is, let's say you have your cap rate and you have the income from the building overall, and you're looking at buying a building, and you want to find out if um the asking price by the seller is making sense. Well, you just put in your NOI, okay, and you divide that by your cap rate, and that will give you what that value of that building is. A lot of times I run that number and it's significantly lower than what the person is trying to sell it for. And so I know there's a huge gap between, okay, well, what the rents are coming in at, because that means if I increase the rents, then the value would go up, right? So that's one way to look at it. Okay, so let's go back into the Excel sheet and let's walk through whether or not it makes sense to pay the extra $52,000 for 8 utilities as opposed to just having 4 utilities. Okay, so in this case here we have, okay, so the value's gone up by $192,000. Okay, so if I was looking at an existing building and I was just looking at adding 52,000 and potentially renovating, I would think, okay, it's going to cost me 52,000 and it's going to take me about 5 to 6 years to get that renovation. Maybe not, because it's 5 to 6 years to get that back, right? It's a bit of a long time. But here's the thing though, with this, because it's a new build, I'm going to be refinancing in 1 year. And potentially in 1 year, I'm going to recoup this $52,000 back within 12 months. Because when I go to refinance and I go from a construction mortgage to a new build, like a regular traditional mortgage at that point, whether it's a mortgage traditionally with the lender or a CMHC mortgage under the MLI, either option, I'm going to be recouping some of this 52,000 because I'm going to be able to recognize this annual increase in savings, and thus I'll be able to add on a value of 192,000 to my NOI because I'm not going to have to pay these utilities anymore. Okay. So in this particular case, because I'm going to be it's a new build and I'm refinancing, I'm going to be able to recoup this 52,000 in 1 year as opposed to 5.6 years. Okay. So now, of course, some of the other things I'm thinking about is, well, wait a minute, is there going to be an increase in the resale value? Okay, well, in my case, I'm not really planning on selling this property. Like it's a long-term buy and hold for me. So does it make a difference on the resale value? It should make a difference on the resale value, but I'm not going to see that benefit because I'm not planning on selling it, right? So now, is it going to increase the appraised value? It might, okay, because in the appraisal, they assume that I'm paying for this utility, right? But if I'm not paying for that utility and that goes to the tenants, right, then I get to save that, and then it basically adds about a $200,000 increase to the property value. Okay. Now, the thing that I still need to figure out is, okay, well, wait a minute. I can't give everything to the tenants, right? Because even if there's separate meters and stuff, there's got to be some way for me as the landlord to pay for common spaces, right? And so in this eightplex, in my particular eightplex, there's not that many common spaces, right? Like there's no like lobby, there's no gym or exercise room or stuff like that. So the common areas are going to be very minimum. Okay. So the one thing though that I need to consider though is, okay, well, how about the garage, right? Because the garages are going to have some utilities there. And will my separate meters cover that garage? I don't know. So I still got to sort that part out. Okay. Now, the other thing to consider is that if I pay this 52,000 now, I I pay that fee, I suck that up. And that's totally fine. And the reason for potentially doing that rather than waiting for the future is that if I ever decide to stratify the building and subdivide the land or so forth, potentially I could sell off each of the units as their own standalone condo units. Now, of course, I could convert the utilities later. Like if I just got one under me right now, I could just convert it later. There would be a different type of charging system to that because yeah, depending on how they build it out. Now I could get my builder to just put in the the space or design it so that I can add it in the future. So it would be a smaller cost now. But the benefit of doing it now is that I get to see this gain of 200,000 right right now and not have to wait for that in the future. Okay. So for me, it totally makes sense to go and get the utilities done on this now to separate them out. Okay. So, so this is an important concept here because whether it's for utilities or whether you're increasing the rent some other way, this exact calculation is how you would do it for all those situations. Okay. So, like I said, this is a short session today. And if you want more information on stuff like this, come to the networking events when I'm in Edmonton, or come and find me when I'm doing these sessions every Monday. Okay, like I can't believe it. We're already in May, May 5th right now. Okay, so if you are available, come and join me on these networking events. Thank you so very much, everybody, for tuning in. Oh, and remember to like these things or put comments in or subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Okay, thanks, everybody. Bye.